As a huge war games exercise takes off, we hear David Cameron warning the West against a 1930s style appeasement of Putin, as well as rather ominous Armageddon-like warnings that Putin, if he can emerge from his fridge, that Putin will attack NATO within 5 to 8 years, so we better be ready. I think all of this is really the sort of rhetoric that you would expect from a war game scenario. I don't think it's based on a scientific analysis of Russia's preparedness for an out-and-out world war, particularly given the news today of the destruction of oil depots in Crimea, which is seriously going to impede any further advance along Russia's attempted siege of Ukraine. Everything is grinding to a halt, really, partly because of the Slavic winter, and partly because the Ukrainians are really very good at repelling the invaders. And rather than pushing for a peace which will not be long-lasting, which will not be effective, I think we need to make sure that President Zelenskyy is equipped with what arms he needs to repel the invasion, and at the same time that talks are set up, not necessarily between Zelenskyy and the Kremlin, but certainly between other concerned nations like the US, like the UK, like Europe. Between these groups and the Kremlin, because ultimately peace is what is needed, but it has to be a lasting peace. The same issues, incidentally, which lie at the core of securing peace for Israel. It must be a lasting peace between Israel and Gaza and the Palestinians. It must be a peace that will prevail, rather than an imposed ceasefire that will give way to something even worse in a couple of years down the line. That pause doesn't actually do anybody any good, as we saw from the period between the First World War and the Second War. It simply nurtures resentment and a feeling of oppression and a feeling that they can do better next time round. We need to make sure there isn't a next time round, and we need to change hearts and minds. And this is what the NATO countries can be doing by engaging in diplomatic conversation with the Kremlin. But there's a big difference between conversation and a peace imposed, the sort of peace that was imposed in the Minsk agreements, which was never going to be something that was long-lasting. That was very much part of the fascination, part of the obsession with, quote, ceasefires. Ceasefires are simply a pause. Ceasefires are not a solution. They are a pause in the fighting. And a pause may be a useful process towards peace, but it isn't the goal. It cannot be the goal. To run around the place demanding a ceasefire is not the objective. It's part of the process towards peace. Peace is the only objective.